Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 72 based on novel. So let's start. Could this Pangong so have changed the grand Shaman Ruda scriptures? Duke Wei was puzzled and muttered, "I've fought with experts from Roland's Golden Palace before and their techniques required souls to cultivate. Even though their bodies were cultivated to a brilliant gold state, most of their techniques used souls as an offense method. Meanwhile, this young barbarian had instead walked the path of the corporeal body. His technique is also slightly different from Grand Shaman Ruda scriptures, it's a little too fierce. He was a first-ranking high official after all, someone on the cult master level. He could immediately see Qin Mu's extraordinary points, however, even with his extraordinary knowledge, he could only see that Qin Mu's Grand Shaman Ruda scriptures was similar yet different. He couldn't see that Qin Mu was actually using heavenly god creation technique. Each and every one of the 7 writings of creation, from great educational heavenly devil scriptures, had their own unique points. Heavenly god creation technique was able to imitate other people's technique, and Granny Sai had exhibited this technique once before, turning into the border dragon city lord Fuyundi, passing off a fake as genuine. Qin Mu killed monk Yuan Jing with a single palm, and all the other monks around felt indignant at the injustice. Another monk stood out and said loudly, "You took the legacy treasure of our Nanto monastery, and killed a person of our Nanto monastery. Do you really think there's no one in our Nanto monastery to match you? I, Yuan Shan, will face you." Qin Mu stretched his hand out and grabbed, his move giving off a crackling sound of thunder. Before monk Yuan Shan could finish saying his words, he fell flat on the ground. His body was still alive and there were no wounds on him. His heart was still beating as well. A few of the monks immediately went forward and checked for his breathing. Monk Yuan Shan was still breathing, but his eyes were closed. "There's no need to check, his soul has scattered," Qin Mu said. "His soul was taken away by my humble self and extinguished." "Didn't you say it was a test of strength?" the bunch of monks shouted in fury. "Why did you land a killing blow time and again?" Qin Mu said indifferently, "This is the rule beyond the Great Wall. As long as one makes a move, there is no life and death. I thought the people of Eternal Peace Empire were brave. It never crossed my mind that all of you had been pampered to the point where you were afraid of death. Seems like I was mistaken. I should put this 1,000 banners pagoda back into our Roland's Golden Palace. There's no one fated among all of you." "Presumptuous," a monk shouted out angrily and swung his monk staff forward. It had 9 hoops with 9 treasures hanging on them. With a swing, a clanking that could shake a person's soul rang out. Qin Mu stood motionless and let the monk staff hit his head. Only when it reached him, did he grab the staff and pull it over forcefully. Both of the monk's hands turned bloody from getting scraped. Pshhh. Qin Mu threw the monk staff back, and it pierced the other's heart, nailing the monk to the floor. Duke Wei shook his head. "Monks of Nanto Monastery only know how to eat and drink. They have lived like princes over these years and the difference between them and him is too huge. None of them is his match on the same realm. The shaman spells of Roland's Golden Palace are bizarre. It's possible for them to destroy the opponent's soul, but something isn't right here. I've never seen his moves before. Could the Grand Shaman have created some new divine art?" Wei Yong still couldn't find Qin Mu and thought to himself, "He told me to come and look at something interesting, yet where is he hiding at?" A few more middle-aged monks walked out of Nanto Monastery with grim expressions. One of them said solemnly, "Go to Supreme Court to report this and bring the authorities to arrest him. Another person shall go to Crown Prince Side Palace, and invite the leader over." The eyes of the other monks lighted up, and they left in a hurry. Supreme Court was responsible for investigating, so there was no need for Nanto Side Palace to fight to the death with Qin Mu. They only needed the authorities to come forward and throw him into the prison. This way the 1,000 banners pagoda would naturally return to Nanto Monastery. Since Qin Mu had killed people in the capital city, it was natural for Supreme Court to come forth and investigate the event. Furthermore, there were also people of Nanto Monastery in Supreme Court, which made things easier. A monk hurriedly ran into the crown prince's side palace and shouted, "Leader, this is bad. Someone has come to thrash our Nanto monastery." Son Nanto was like a huge Buddha sitting cross-legged. When he heard what the monk said, he opened his eyes and looked towards the crown prince. The crown prince was a middle-aged man, and didn't look much younger than Emperor Yang Feng. He twirled his mustache around his finger and said with a smile, "Could it be the devils of Heavenly Devil cult coming to seek revenge?" That monk shook his head. "It's not Heavenly Devil cult, it's a disciple from Roland's golden palace called Pangong So. He brought with him the legacy treasure of our Nanto monastery, which was lost a few hundred years ago, the Thousand Banners Pagoda. He said he would give it to a fated person. As long as we could win against him while being on the same realm as he would give the Thousand Banners Pagoda over. Our senior and junior brothers went forth to challenge him, and were killed without any explanation. By now, he has killed many of our senior and junior brothers." Son Nanto's expression turned grim. "You guys don't cultivate Buddhist skills and are intoxicated by women and wine, it serves you right to have this defeat. However, Thousand Banners Pagoda is the legacy treasure of our Nanto sect, which was lost a few hundred years ago, beyond the Great Wall. So we have to welcome the return of this treasure." The crown prince frowned slightly. "Grand Preceptor, Heavenly Devil cult just lost 2 heavenly kings. With the attitude of the number 1 sacred ground of the devil cult, they would definitely not let things be. Now that a disciple of Roland's golden palace has suddenly popped out, could it be a trap? I've heard that lying low for over 40 years, Heavenly Devil cult has brought forth a new cult master, but we still don't know his background." Son Nanto rose and said indifferently, "Your Highness, your news is a little outdated. The background of the new cult master of Heavenly Devil cult has already been spread. I have received news from Great Thunderclap Monastery that this new cult master is the Imperial Academician of Imperial College. His surname is Qin and his name is Mu, and he's an abandoned person from Great Ruins. Not long ago, His Majesty raised his official position, making him a 5th-ranking palace grandee. It's actually him." The crown prince rose and said in astonishment, "Even though the new cult master of Heavenly Devil cult is young, there are still strong practitioners and wise people in the cult, so we can't let our guard down. Grand Preceptor, I didn't think you would still have contact with Great Thunderclap Monastery. Could you arrange for a meeting?" "This is simple." Son Nanto said while walking outside, "Old Rulai also wants to meet your highness." The crown prince went after him, smiling. "I'll follow you to take a look at that Pangong So. I shall see if he's from Roland's Golden Palace, or from Heavenly Devil cult." Not much later, the inquirers from Supreme Court hurried over. When they met Duke Wei, they immediately greeted him. Duke Wei saw Son Nanto and the crown prince walking over from the corners of his eyes, and said in his loud voice, "The emperor gave an order in the past that the imperial court will belong to the imperial court, and the martial world will belong to the martial world. This is a grudge of the martial world, so there's no need for Supreme Court to meddle. Otherwise, with all the fighting in the martial world daily, could Supreme Court handle all of it? We'll see when an official of the imperial court dies. Lord Sun, your highness, come join in the fun here." Son Nanto's expression sunk, while the crown prince smiled. "Grand Preceptor, it's best if we go over. If we don't, Duke Wei's loud mouth would blabber until the entire capital learned of it. Come to think of it, it's time to change that rule father had set back then." The rule Duke Wei had mentioned was one the emperor had set with all the big sects back in the day. They had decided that the imperial court will belong to the imperial court, while the martial world will belong to the martial world, each not interfering with the other. Even though the monks of Nanto Monastery were disciples of Crown Prince's Grand Preceptor Son Nanto, most of them didn't have an official position, so they could only be classified as people of the martial world. Son Nanto and the Crown Prince came to the side of Duke Wei and the rest. While they were talking, Qin Mu killed a couple more monks, and sparked the fury of Nanto's side palace. All of the monks were making a racket to gang up on him. The few middle-aged monks saw more and more people in the surroundings, and since they were afraid of throwing the name of Nanto Monastery, they immediately shouted at the monks to keep silent. "Duke, your highness, Lord Sun. Duke Wei looked over and saw another old lord coming over with a smile. So it's Lord Yang Jigue. Lord Yang is currently quite a popular man, standing beside the Emperor and Empress Dowager. Lord Yang immediately said, Duke Wei is joking. Lord Sun, what's the matter? Nanto Monastery is in trouble. From the looks of it, that person is seeking revenge. Another few high officials of the imperial court walked over, and one of them said, Nanto Monastery has been criticized over the recent years for walking in and out of the courtyards of the women in the kings, dukes and ministers' families. There were complaints from numerous ministers, but it wasn't good for them to disclose it as it would affect their reputation. This time, I reckon they are all enjoying the commotion around here. Look, none of them are willing to get involved in it. Lord Sun is also here. They were all first and second ranking high officials in the imperial court, and had purposely acted as if they had not seen Sun Nanto, not giving him a good look. Sun Nanto remained unmoved as he looked at Qin Mu. Eternal Peace Crown Prince was also sizing Qin Mu up and trying to see the origin of his technique. Send a divine arts practitioner up with his 6 directions divine treasure sealed. He will then unseal his 6 directions divine treasure mid-fight and land a killing blow. We'll just kill him directly. A middle-aged monk said in a low voice, Yuan Kong, you shall go. We've already lost our face, so it'd make no difference if we lost slightly more. No matter what, we have to win the 1,000 banners pagoda back. Monk Yuan Kong acknowledged his words and sealed his 6 directions divine treasure at once as he went down to challenge Qin Mu. His cultivation surpassed Monk Yuan Jing's by leaps and bounds. Standing straight, his body was like a 1,000 arms Buddha that had an unmovable body and flailing arms. It was a different approach, but equally marvelous compared to the 1,000-armed Buddha of Thunderclap 8 strikes. Qin Mu went forward to attack and heard loud thunder. The two of them had punched forward at the same time, and gales burst forth violently around them, surging in all directions and rustling everyone's clothes. Cracking sounds exploded from Monk Yuan Jing's body as he collapsed stiffly onto the ground. All of his bones were shattered. He was killed before he could even unseal his 6 directions divine treasure in time. Most of the monks of Nanto Monastery stared in anger and wanted to chop Qin Mu into pieces by their shouts. However, they were all blocked by the middle-aged monk. Duke Wei clapped in admiration and shouted out loudly, the grand Shaman Ruda scriptures of Roland's Golden Palace are so powerful. Another great monk is killed. Sun Nanto frowned slightly and said in a low voice, this is grand Shaman Ruda scriptures. He had never met any of the experts of Roland's Golden Palace before and never seen this kind of technique before. On the other hand, Duke Wei had gone to the west borders before and clashed with the shaman kings of Roland's Golden Palace. Eternal Peace Crown Prince pondered, I've heard that the shamans of Roland's Golden Palace use their souls to cultivate, transforming themselves into half humans and half demons, having all kinds of transformations. As he was saying this, another monk of Nanto Monastery went forward and unsealed the 6 directions divine treasure straight away, wanting to execute his divine arts. He took unfair advantage of Qin Mu by immediately closing in on him and placing a mudra on his chest. That monk of Nanto Monastery opened his 6 direction divine treasure, and his vigor increased exponentially as his divine art burst forth. He was even stronger than Yuan Kong, and had cultivated over 400 treasures from the 1,000 treasures in spirit treasure unmovable meditation technique. He had over 400 mudras, and he used them one after another. Instantly, the Buddha aura shone brightly with flowing colors. The monk looked like a Buddha who was angered while subduing demons and devils and received shouts of praise from the crowd. Superb cultivation, Monk Yuan Yu, a woman from some family exclaimed in admiration with a look of infatuation. While she was saying that, Qin Mu's body jolted, and he changed into the god transformation that had a bull's head, a human's body, and bull's hooves. His whole body shone with a brilliant golden luster as he stepped on 2 dragons. A bull's eyes appeared in the heart of his brows and a trail of flame shot out, slicing through Monk Yuan Yu's neck. Monk Yuan Yu could only feel himself flying backward. He looked over to see his body with an open neck spewing blood, no head in sight. His head flew to the bosom of the woman, who looked infatuated, turning her complexion deathly pale, as she screamed in astonishment before fainting. Piak, piak. Qin Mu's tail swayed and smacked twice on his buttocks, instantly turning them red. Eternal Peace Crown Prince's gaze flickered, and he said, "It should be the grand Shaman Ruda scriptures of Roland's Golden Palace." However, why did he have to smack his own buttocks? Is this some bizarre spell from Roland's Golden Palace? Duke Wei saw Qin Mu returning back to his normal form, and was slightly bewildered. He looked towards the Imperial Preceptor's manor and thought to himself, Imperial Preceptor, that cold fellow, seems to have cultivated a similar technique before. I remember seeing him exhibit such a form before. Weird, Imperial Preceptor, this old boy, actually didn't come out to see the commotion. Did he get drained dry by all those palace maids the Emperor rewarded him with? Pangong Tso is really a disciple of Roland's Golden Palace. Sun Nanto was a little hesitant. Roland's Golden Palace was the #1 sacred ground, beyond the Great Wall, and people in it called themselves shamans. They cultivated evil spells and used souls to cultivate, reconstructing their bodies into a form that was neither human nor demon. What Qin Mu had executed just now was a god transformation. Among those who reached the 5 elements realm, there were few who managed to cultivate god transformations. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, this monster, still complained about Imperial College not teaching profound knowledge, but it wasn't because it didn't want to teach. It was because there were not many people among the directorates who could cultivate a god transformation of 5 elements realm. In addition to that, Qin Mu's god transformation was out of the ordinary to top it. Even Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had been astonished that it seemed that both his corporeal body and his vital chi transformed into those of a god, and there were even signs of his spirit and soul transforming. There was also a change to his aura that was very extraordinary. For example, a bullseye had grown at the heart of Qin Mu's brows when he used the flame god form earlier. A trail of flame had shot out from that eye and severed monk Yuan Yu's head. This was a divine art that was formed by his corporeal body, vital chi, soul, and spirit transforming into those that were at the level of a god. Even if ordinary martial arts practitioners of 5 elements realm managed to cultivate their god transformations, they would be very different from Qin Mu's god transformation. Those people also wouldn't be able to execute such moves like what Qin Mu did. If even Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor didn't understand everything about this, then it was natural that Sun Nanto, the Crown Prince, and the rest of the people around wouldn't be able to recognize it, either. They simply thought that it was the demon transformation of Roland's Golden Palace, and exclaimed in admiration at how powerful and bizarre Grand Shaman Ruda scriptures was. Lord Sun, a lot of your disciples were killed, won't you challenge him personally? Duke Wei said while shaking his head. You should challenge him personally and defeat this barbarian. Only then could the reputation of your Nanto monastery be saved. The disciples of your Nanto monastery are simply lacking. The guy just now had executed his divine art of the 6 directions realm, yet his head was still chopped off by an opponent of 5 elements realm. This is simply embarrassing. Sun Nanto's gaze wavered, but he ignored the man. He knew that Duke Wei's mouth could swallow the entire sky, so if he replied to him, the other would definitely have a way to force him to challenge Qin Mu. But it was something he couldn't do at any cost. He had no certainty that he would win when fighting with the strength of the same realm. Even though he had cultivated the 1000 of Madras in Spirit Treasure Unmovable Meditation Technique to perfection, it was highly unlikely for Spirit Treasure Unmovable Meditation Technique to defeat this barbarian. If he then executed his 6 directions realm, it would definitely not escape the eyes of Duke Wei, and if he started blabbering about it, that would be even more embarrassing. There was also no doubt that Duke Wei would blabber about it. Eternal Peace Crown Prince said in a low voice, Grand Preceptor, I have a few good fighters with me, maybe they could help you defeat this barbarian. Sun Nanto shook his head. I'm thinking where the guardian of this barbarian is. Guardian? Eternal Peace Crown Prince was slightly stunned. Sun Nanto looked around and said, Your Highness might not know this, but everyone who blocks the gate needs a guardian by their side. This is to prevent them from getting assassinated. For example, when Dao sect blocked the gate of Imperial College, Dan Yangzi was the guardian of Daozi. When Great Thunderclap Monastery blocked the gate of Imperial College, old monk Jingming was acting as the guardian of Fozi Fushin. For this barbarian to be so courageous, there definitely is a guardian from Roland's Golden Palace nearby. This person would definitely be an expert of the cult master level. Only when we find him and defeat him can we regain the face of my Nanto monastery. He knew that with how he hated evil with a passion, he had offended numerous ministers daily. On top of that, with how the disciples of Nanto Side Palace practiced corrupted habits, many of the people in the city were waiting to see him make a fool of himself. If he wanted to quell this matter, the best choice was to find the troublemaker's guardian and kill him in a just and honorable manner. As for the youth's life and death, it wasn't his concern. Suddenly, Sun Nanto walked over to the young man, and the monks of Nanto Monastery couldn't help being surprised and delighted. They all made way for him. Qin Mu stood outside Nanto Side Palace, the corpses around him having already been dragged away. From the beginning to the end, over 10 monks had died at his hands, and the monks of Nanto Monastery were staring at him in anger, yet they didn't dare to make a move. Once they noticed Sun Nanto coming forward personally, anticipation grew in their hearts. Sun Nanto raised his head and looked at the 1,000 Banners pagoda with a flickering gaze. Who gave you such guts to take the legacy treasure of our Nanto monastery, which Roland's Golden Palace had stolen a few hundred years ago, to block the gate of our Nanto monastery? Qin Mu shook his head. I have come forward this time to sell this treasure to a fated person, and not to block the gate of your Nanto monastery. If other people want to get this 1,000 Banners pagoda, they can also come forth and challenge me. As long as they are fated, there's no harm in giving it to them. This great monk, if you have the ability, you can defeat me and take this 1,000 Banners pagoda away. If you don't have the ability, don't bother me doing my business. Eternal Peace Crown Prince walked over with a smile. You said you want to sell this treasure. If you're selling it, there would definitely be a price. May I know how much you are selling it for? Qin Mu took a glance at him and said, of course there is a price. The expressions of the monks of Nanto Monastery froze as their hearts filled with madness. If they had known they could buy it, why would they have fought to the death with this barbarian? Eternal Peace Crown Prince's spirit was roused and he asked with a smile, what's the price? Just state any, there's nothing in this world I can't buy. Qin Mu's expression softened. The price isn't too expensive. 100 flying ships with apothecaries and medicine boys allocated within each one. In addition to that, I want 200 cloud chariots. There's no need for gold-armored strong men, since there are plenty of strong men in our Great Wall. Eternal Peace Crown Prince's expression sank. You're playing with me. The flying ships and cloud chariots were military armaments, important weapons of Eternal Peace Empire. They had been invented by Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, and a bunch of other strong practitioners. Cloud chariots were important weapons to attack the city, so if the flying ships and cloud chariots were sold to the Great Wall, this would be treason. Even if he was a crown prince, the emperor would still take his head. Qin Mu said indifferently, if the crown prince can't afford this price, then don't bother me doing my business. Eternal Peace Crown Prince's expression sank. I shall give this treasure to the fated one, Qin Mu said solemnly. Those who think they can defeat my humble self can come forth to try. My humble self will stay here for 3 days. If no one can win against my humble self in 3 days, my humble self will return to the Great Wall. 3 days. Sun Nanto looked around and still couldn't find the guardian, who was hiding in the shadows. He then thought to himself, with 3 days' time, I'll definitely find out where he is hiding. The monks of Nanto Monastery didn't come forward to challenge, so Qin Mu sat down on the street quietly and waited. The people watching the commotion gradually dispersed. Most of the kings, dukes, and ministers left their servants to watch the situation. Duke Wei brought Wei Yong to Imperial Preceptor's manor and knocked on the door. Elder Fu walked out with a smile and asked, Duke, what's the matter? Where's Imperial Preceptor? Old Master has brought Madam out on a scenic tour. Duke Wei jumped in shock and stuttered, Madam. What Madam? Duke Wei might not know, but after the emperor rewarded Old Master with 100 palace maids, Old Master was very happy. The next day, he got along with one of the women, and held a wedding on the very same day, sharing their nuptial cups. After waking up, Old Master left with Madam, so they are no longer in the capital city. Duke Wei trembled violently, while a weird expression came onto his face. He stuttered out again, Imperial Preceptor got married, he actually got married. This guy, I thought he didn't have any emotions. Never would have I thought he would get married. This scoundrel, he didn't even tell me. Elder Fu smiled. Old Master said to keep everything simple, so he didn't even inform the emperor. Duke Wei let out a light breath. Oh well, they are so poor I doubt they would even be able to hold a banquet. I will let my servant send a red packet, and some gift boxes over. When did Imperial Preceptor say he will be back? Elder Fu shook his head. Duke Wei let out a sigh and muttered to himself, there's a problem with that barbarian, but since he's staying here for 3 days, there's no rush. I'll wait for Imperial Preceptor to be back. The night fell and all kinds of flower lanterns were lighted up in all parts of the capital city. The night markets were opened up, and the street gradually became bustling with activity. Duke Wei let Wei Yong inquire around, and he came back to say, because it is nearing New Year's, there's less than a month left, most of the merchants in the city are selling New Year's goods. So I see. Let us father and son take a walk around. Old and young men walked around the night market, and saw many young ladies from influential families walking out of their chambers. They were well dressed and carried a court fan. While they admired the flower lanterns, they would cover their faces upon seeing young men looking over. However, they would secretly size up those young men from behind their court fans. Wei Yong was from the old Wei family, and didn't have much relation to Duke Wei. Only when he made a name for himself in Imperial College did he enter the others' eyes. As they walked around, Duke Wei gave him pointers for his cultivation. While speaking to each other, they walked past Nanto Side Palace, and Duke Wei was stunned when he didn't see Pan Gong So's figure outside. He only saw many monks coming out from Nanto Side Palace, and the one being surrounded was Sun Nanto. Other than him, there were also other guardians and abbots of the side palace. A monk hurriedly said, Leader, the barbarian secretly escaped under the cover of the night market. I've already sent a few senior and junior brothers after him. Crafty, this barbarian actually pulled a feint and made us think he would stay here for 3 days. So we didn't expect him to slip away on the night of the very same day. Those senior brothers that are following him will not let him escape. Sun Nantuo was expressionless. He told the monk to follow and hurried away, while saying in a deep voice, we'll make our move outside the city. Duke Wei's eyes lighted up, and he went forward with Wei Yong while smiling. Sun Nantuo, this guy, seems sanctimonious, so I would never have expected him to be such a sinister and cunning person. If he killed that barbarian in the capital, people would be sure to criticize him. But if he made his move outside and got rid of the corpse, no one would know about it. Let us follow them and see how these monks murder and arson. Wei Yong followed after him, and thus the young and old men went after the strong practitioners of Nanto Monastery out of the capital. There were monks squeezing out from the crowd from time to time to report the traces of Pan Gong So to Sun Nanto. Gradually, they walked out of the city. There was also a night market outside the capital, and the lanterns there were brightly lit. The night market spanned for several miles, and there were people coming to and fro, making it extraordinarily bustling. Duke Wei brought Wei Yong and lingered behind the monks of Nanto Monastery. They unknowingly walked for several miles, and there was actually still a night market here. Not only was it still around, but there was also a village and a wide wooden gate which was over a dozen yards wide. A red wooden sign was hung on that wooden gate. Duke Wei raised his head and looked at this red wooden sign. On it, there were 4 words, Teachings of Sacred Teacher. The corners of Duke Wei's eyes twitched, and he hesitated for a moment. Sun Nantuo had already walked into this village, and the lanterns here were brightly lit. There were iron wax placed on the pillars, and inside them was concentrated kerosene that was crackling from the burning fire. There were all kinds of stalls in the village, and there was even a butcher's shop that slaughtered pigs and goats. Sounds of hawking rang in the bustling village, so everything seemed like an ordinary night market. "What's wrong, Duke?" Wei Yong was puzzled. "Teachings of sacred teacher, I have seen this phrase before." With a grim expression, Duke Wei said, when the previous cult master of Heavenly Devil cult, Li Qianxing, set out on a long journey and came to the side palace, he had hung this phrase outside his gate. Heavenly Devil cult refers to their cult master as sacred teacher, which means that the sacred teacher is coming to teach them. The people in the night market are from Heavenly Devil cult. Duke Wei hesitated for a moment and walked in. Suddenly, a male and female elders walked out with a smile. "Duke, hold your step." Duke Wei was about to say something when an earth-shattering sound rang out. He hurriedly looked over and saw the peddlers, scholars, and beauties wandering around suddenly spring into action. All of the monks of Nanto monastery were assassinated by the peddlers and passers-by beside them. Their heads flew into the air, and blood painted the sky crimson. Once these people succeeded in their assassination, they retreated and moved back into the houses on both sides. In a blink of an eye, all the monks beside Sun Nanto were left headless. Sun Nanto shouted out, and the body of 1,000 arms Buddha appeared. It was over 300 yards tall. With the Buddha aura shining brightly, the statue held 1,000 magical artifacts and looked awe-inspiring. At this moment, 20 elders came from all directions and pounced on Sun Nanto. With a loud bang, the 1,000 arms Buddha was shattered into pieces. Duke Wei was left dazed as the night market regained its bustling activity. There were people moving the corpses away, while others were drawing the river water to wash the ground. Teachings of sacred teacher. Duke Wei remembered this phrase and shuddered. He immediately said, "Let's go and not see the true face of this devil cult master." Suddenly, Wei Yong waved toward the village with a smile. "Brother Qin, why are you here?" Qin Mu turned his head around and was stunned when he saw Wei Yong. A smile bloomed on his face and he waved his hand. "So it's Brother Wei and Duke Wei. Why are you standing outside? Come in quickly." Wei Yong immediately made eyes at him and said, "Come out quickly, I have something to tell you. Come over here, something huge has happened at Imperial College." He was worried about Qin Mu's safety, so he had to pull him out of the pit. He thought to himself, Brother Qin must have come to take a walk, not knowing that this is the place where Heavenly Devil cult is seeking its revenge, so he went in mistakenly. How dangerous is this? These fiends of Heavenly Devil cult even dared to kill a first-ranking high official like Sun Nanto, who was a cult master level existence, in an instant. I'm afraid that even the bone marrow would be squeezed out from that small body of Brother Qin. Duke Wei looked at the two elders blocking his path of retreat, and a vein popped out on his forehead while the corners of his eyes twitched. Wei Yong, this scoundrel, is even more of a troublemaker than me. I'm afraid I can't leave now even if I wanted to. Qin Mu raised his hand, and the old woman behind Duke Wei immediately went forward. Qin Mu tilted his head, and said a thing or two to her. That old woman returned with a grin. "Duke Wei, little brother from the Wei family, please take a seat inside." The corners of Duke Wei's eyes twitched, and he took a long look at Qin Mu before taking in a deep breath. "Let us go in." As the two people went into the village, they could see that this place was only built recently. Everything was new, and there was even the fragrance of wood in the air. Duke Wei and Wei Yong saw Qin Mu walking farther into the village, and braced themselves to follow him. Duke Wei asked in a low voice, "Yonga, how's your relationship with little brother Qin Mu? We have been through life and death together." He then added respectfully, "He was the one who saved me when the scholars' ship got attacked by Dragon Rider sect." Duke Wei started to get a headache. "Then did you save him?" Wei Yong shook his head. "He saved you yet you didn't save him in turn, so what's this having been through life and death together?" Duke Wei's heart was anxious. "I can only take things step by step now. I can consider myself having been sabotaged by this little scoundrel. I don't know if my few meetings with Li Qianxing would be of any use." They came to the center of the village where there was a stage. It was only a foot above the ground and was constructed of wood. The stage wasn't huge, about 10 yards wide. Most of the Heavenly Devil cult's followers sat below the stage, and the old woman beside Duke Wei chuckled. "Duke, little brother from the Wei family, just take a seat. Don't worry, we've just mopped the floor, it's very clean." Wei Yong lowered his head to have a look and saw some dark red bloodstains. After noticing this, he couldn't stop himself from muttering under his breath, "I wonder if they cleaned up properly, or if there's still a human head or two lying around." Heavenly Devil cult had eliminated Nanto side palace, as well as Sun Nanto in an instant, which showed how absurd their strength was. Even Duke Wei, who had experienced hundreds of battles, didn't dare to be reckless, and thought to himself, even though Heavenly Devil cult has such a great fanfare here, the strong practitioners in the capital will definitely not be alarmed. Their actions were too quick back then, and I reckon they could kill us equally fast right now too. Under the stage, several hundred people sat in silence, waiting for the teachings of the sacred teacher. Wei Yong looked around and saw Qin Mu. He immediately waved his hand at him excitedly. Brother Qin, over here." Duke Wei wanted more than anything to press this little fatty down on the ground and stuff a few stinky socks into his mouth, so that he would stop blabbering. Luckily, the followers of Heavenly Devil cult didn't seem to hear Wei Yong's blabber, and remained sitting upright. Qin Mu smiled at Wei Yong and walked up the stage. Wei Yong jumped in shock and hurriedly said in a hoarse whisper, "Don't go up the stage, don't go up. That's where the sacred teacher gives his teachings." Duke Wei looked at him fiercely and scolded, "Rascal, keep your mouth shut." Wei Yong immediately shut up. Duke Wei said angrily, "Don't you see how tight-lipped I am? How did I have such a blabbermouth of a descendant like you? Haven't you realized it yet?" Wei Yong was stunned. When Qin Mu walked up the stage and turned around, all the followers of Heavenly Devil cult stood up and bowed. "Cult Master Sacred Teacher." Qin Mu nodded and said, "Everyone, dispense with the formalities, sit." Everyone sat down. Wei Yong's mouth was agape, and there was a stupefied look in his eyes. He didn't regain his sense for quite some time. Duke Wei sighed and muttered, "I long knew that there was a problem with that Pangong so." His grand Shaman Ruda scriptures was a little different. From the looks of it now, it was most likely the cult master sacred teacher of Heavenly Devil cult making his move personally. Heavenly Devil cult actually chose a youth as their cult master, they really have guts. On the stage, Qin Mu also sat down and said, "Who here knows spells regarding searching the soul?" A woman stood up and bowed. "Sacred teacher, I have some attainments." Qin Mu nodded. He suddenly executed Soul Guide and a sinister-looking gate appeared behind his back. Black fog poured out of the gate, and even the light from the kerosene in the iron works died down. At this moment, everyone saw Sun Nanto standing in the sinister darkness along with the rest of the monks. Qin Mu said, "Hall Master, I want to know who are the accomplices of Sun Nanto that had allied with him to harm our two heavenly kings." "Understood." The female Hall Master went forward and took out a shining mirror. She executed her secret art and shone the light towards Sun Nanto. This mirror ray shone on the monk's soul, penetrating it and landing on the air behind him. All kinds of pictures appeared, which were the memories of Sun Nanto of when he was still alive. The pictures fleeted by rapidly and continued to go back in time. Soon, they reached the memory of when they had ambushed Heavenly King Lu. Crown Prince's Grand Tutor Yun Boshan, Crown Prince's Grand Protector Ting Yanju, Crown Prince's Junior Preceptor Kui Mingji, Crown Prince's Junior Tutor He Qianxiu, and Right Guardian Shui Baiyi recorded down the people who had appeared in Sun Nanto's memory. Her pupils contracted when her gaze landed on the last guy. An Eternal Peace Empire's Crown Prince Ling Yuxia. Qin Mu nodded and said, "Note it down. We'll send them on their way when we find the chance." Right Guardian noted down the name of Eternal Peace Crown Prince. Duke Wei's heart trembled violently, and he opened his mouth, yet no sound came out. Heavenly Devil cult was too unbridled to even want to send the Crown Prince on his way. After all, that was the Crown Prince of Eternal Peace Empire. However, it wasn't good for him to say anything. Eternal Peace Empire may be flourishing now, but it had only started doing so in the last 200 years. Eternal Peace Empire only rose in power when Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had risen. Heavenly Devil Cult was instead a true behemoth that had existed from the ancient times. It had a long history, and had been through the prosperity of countless countries, as well as the change of dynasties. What happened was not only a deep hatred that was born from the death of their heavenly kings, but also a great humiliation, so this revenge had to be taken. Now that Duke Wei was in a precarious situation himself, how could he speak for the Crown Prince? That female Hall Master continued to look back into Sun Nantuo's memories and searched all the way until they had ambushed Heavenly King Qian. Other than the ones named, there was an additional person during the attack, Crown Prince's junior protector Master Ruo Piao. Crown Prince's junior protector of this generation wasn't Ji Linwan. Because he had been missing for 200 years, the position of Crown Prince's junior protector was given by the Emperor to Master Ruo Piao. He was from Buddhism, and his religious name was Ruo Piao. Yun Boshan and Kui Mingji were both cult master level existences that came from Taoism. Tin Yanju and He Qianxiu were both from influential families that had followed great ancestor emperor to conquer the world. These 5 people, including the already dead Sun Nantuo, belonged to the Crown Prince's faction. They had all been teachers of the Crown Prince. Among the 16 first-ranking high officials, there were 6 in the Crown Prince's faction. Note down Master Ruo Piao's name, Qin Mu said. It's almost New Year's now, so let's let them have a peaceful celebration and eat their last New Year's Eve's family dinner. Sun Nantuo is already dead and Nantuo Side Palace has already been eliminated. Nantuo Monastery is still around, so guardians and elders raise Nantuo Monastery without leaving any trace. All of the guardians and elders acknowledged this command. Duke Wei let out a sigh of relief. This young cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult was still thinking logically. If they went in now and killed 6 first-ranking high officials of the Imperial Court in a short while, including the Crown Prince, the Emperor would definitely investigate and find out that it was the doings of Heavenly Devil Cult. Eternal Peace Imperial Court was the orthodox one after all. If they went against the Imperial Court, there would be no place left for Heavenly Devil Cult. In addition to that, Dao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery would definitely hit them when they were down. When that time came, Heavenly Devil Cult would be in danger. Killing one every few days could minimize their risk to the lowest. For example, to kill Sun Nantuo and eliminate Nantuo Monastery, Qin Mu had used the identity of Roland's Golden Palace, and brought Nantuo Monastery's legacy treasure to bait the monks out. He also forced Sun Nantuo into the open and lured him out of the capital city. Even though Sun Nantuo was a cult master level existence, killing him and eliminating Nantuo Side Palace only took an instant. Furthermore, since they didn't make their move in the capital, there was no traces left, so it could be said that everything had been perfectly executed and covered up nicely. Even if the Emperor wanted to investigate, he wouldn't be able to find any clues. He would never know it was the doing of Heavenly Devil Cult. After Sun Nantuo had died, the Crown Prince would definitely be alerted, and it would be hard to lay their hands on him. If they made a move, they would probably fall into an ambush, so it would be better for them to pass this period of time in waiting. At this moment, Qin Mu looked at Wei Yong and Duke Wei, revealing a smile. Duke Wei felt a lingering fear in his heart and chuckled. Cult Master, I have a very loud voice. I know. Qin Mu smiled. If Duke shouted, everyone in the capital city would probably hear you quite clearly. Does Duke think the method our sacred cult used to kill Sun Nantuo was clean and fast? Duke Wei's heart was hanging on a string. Qin Mu meant that he could eliminate them before they could even shout out a word. Duke Wei took in a deep breath. I once had quite a deep friendship with your cult master Li. Qin Mu tilted his head and looked at the left and right guardians beside him. Shui Bai replied, the previous cult master had met with him a few times. They didn't have a deep friendship. Duke Wei's complexion turned black, and he looked around secretly, trying to see if there was a chance to escape. Qin Mu said solemnly, Duke, my cult just lost 2 heavenly kings, so there are 2 seats empty. Since Duke belongs to an influential family, but not to any sect, there shouldn't be anything stopping you from becoming our cult heavenly king, am I right? Duke Wei gave 2 coarse laughs, then looked around and saw the 20-strong practitioners, who had worked together to kill Sun Nanto standing up. The corners of his eyes twitched, and he said, I'm Duke Wei, and I have an official position, so where would I find the time to be your cult's heavenly king? Why don't you give me an easier task? Qin Mu smiled warmly down at him. Don't worry, our sacred cult is quite idle. We will only trouble Duke Wei when we need to fight, it'll be just a title. Besides, not only are the cult heavenly kings idle, even I the cult master am also very idle. If something like this hadn't happened, there wouldn't have been the need for me to come out personally. If Duke isn't willing to, we won't make things difficult for you. As long as Duke makes an oath to not say what you saw today, you may leave. Everyone has too many misconceptions about our sacred cult. They even think that we are devils that don't even blink when slaughtering people. Don't you think so? When he was done, he laughed out loud. The followers of Heavenly Devil Cult also laughed with him, but they were all putting on fake smiles. They looked like they were ready to fall onto the 2 intruders and silence them. I'm willing. Duke Wei immediately said. Wei Yong hesitated for a moment and said, Duke. Shut up. Duke Wei turned his head around and scolded him, you have landed me in hot soup. The reputation I built throughout my whole life is all tarnished now in the hands of you little brat. If you didn't shout out for Brother Qin, we could have left unscathed. Wei Yong pouted and said, Old master, they said that they would let us leave. So why did you have to join their cult? Brother Qin is kind-hearted. He's not some kind of villainous person. Duke Wei blinked a few times. Do you really think he's not a villainous person? If he's not a villainous person, how did he become the cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult? Qin Mu coughed. Heavenly King Wei, we normally called ourselves Heavenly Saint Cult, and not Heavenly Devil Cult. I'm also not a devil cult master, I'm a sacred cult master. Heavenly King Wei, keep this in mind. Wei Yong said excitedly, Old father, the title Heavenly King stands out much more than Duke. Brother Qin, assign me a role as well. This video will end here.